So welcome everybody. Thank you for coming along. Sorry we're a few minutes late getting started. I had a few technical issues with the browser.
No, it's fine. Our event was running over and we had issues to get here, so
Okay, so it's all worked out anyway. That's good.
Yes. Oh, thank God for that. I missed
screen. So
Somebody's on the screen.
Probably Simon.
What? Sorry?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh yes, that's right.
I couldn't even see your name tag yet. I knew it was in the screen.
It's not. I keep hitting the wrong shortcut key. I'm spelling. Coming in on a computer, I tell you, it's not good. I'm actually inside immersed at the minute. I'm actually I've opened up Banter from inside immersed, and I'm trying to get some other screens going, so it's all chaos.
Wow. That's quite, I've not tried that with immersed. I've only ever had things like Word and Excel and a browser open and things.
Yeah.
Didn't even think to give it a try with Banter.
Oh,
I think there'd probably
really
be smoke
well.
coming out of my PC if I did that.
Well, it's going to be 2D, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the catch then.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay,
Why
so
would I do that?
to get moving on. Last week there were a couple of things I did want to cover and we kind of ran out of time. But I know we did cover channel packing. Actually, it would have been useful advice. I'm probably going to need GIMP, so let's get it open. We did cover channel packing last week. And I showed you how to do it manually by decomposing your image and putting your grayscale maps into each channel. But what I didn't cover was the fact that that is the long way round. I thought it was worth explaining to you how to do it manually so you fully understood the process and what we were doing and why we were doing it. But there are lots of applications out there that will actually do it for you way quicker. If you do a search for instance, I don't know, just search for texture channel packing, if you can spell properly, you'll see loads of stuff coming up. Actually, I should have done texture channel packer. Loads of ones come up. There's even one in the Unity Asset Store which you can install into Unity itself, but I really don't like it, and it only supports 3 channels. I know I only covered 3 channels, red, green and blue last time, but you do actually have a 4th channel that you can use. You've got the alpha channel. As long as you're not needing to use transparency in your image, you can use that unused alpha channel to store another grayscale map. So technically, you can combine 4 grayscale maps down into one texture should you wish to. Worth remembering. As I say, the Unity's channel packer only does red, green and blue though. There's a one here. This only does red, green and blue as well, but normally I would use this one. It's ever so easy. You can get like a portable version, so nothing's kind of installed in your registry and stuff. You just delete the folder if you don't want it. And it's ever so easy to use, and once I've done my red, green and blue, it's so easy to then just put that into GIMP and add an alpha channel and stick a grayscale map in there manually. I haven't found a good one that does all 4 yet, but when I find it I'll let you know. So this one is by defconnect.work. It is currently, I have it in the documents, it's called TCP Texture Channel Packer. And literally you've got your 3 channels. You tell it what colour you want if you're not going to be putting a grayscale map in there. You know, if you want it, you know, a value of 0 or 1. You choose the scale of your image, convert it, you get your funky looking psychedelic coloured thing here, and then you can just export it into whatever format you want. And it does exactly the same thing as what we'd spent ages doing last week. So that is worth remembering. I use this a lot. There was another thing I wanted to tell you about as well, which was, I don't know if you remember, oh, that's the wrong thing. If you remember last week, we talked about if you ever needed to reset the position of your object, you can actually pull down the three little dots, and reset property, reset your position there. But more often than not, because I tend to try and work at super speed, I just right click and hit reset. And of course everything goes wrong, because when you've exported it from Blender, not only has it adjusted the rotation to take into account the fact that Y is up in Unity and Z is up in Blender, it also, Blender exports objects at a scale of 100. So you have to end up putting all that back to the way it should be and get your rotation right. It's usually -90 and it's just a pain. There is a useful add-on which up until very, very recently, I'm disappointed to find out, is actually not free anymore. The standard basic version is now $5. It used to be free. It's called Machine Tools or Machine 3 Tools, because it's got a 3 in the name. It's this thing here, Machine 3. Let's just have a little search for that as well. So, I actually did a search. There it is there. So yeah, it even says here, standard version is no longer free. You need to pay $333,000 if you want to buy the standard version. Which is quite interesting. But yeah, they've got the Prime version. It's now the cheapest at $5. Still not bad. You get a lot of really good things with it for the free version. One of my favourites is this thing here. I don't know if you've noticed, when you hit Control and S instead of saving, you get this rather useful menu up where you've got all your usual save options, but you can very quickly import and export stuff as well. You can append and link. These are really useful. Very similar, but they work differently. I will be going over this as well at some point. You will find it incredibly useful once you learn about it. All these different things you can do anyway, but one of the useful things it does is it gives you this little tab on the side, and it allows you to export stuff perfectly for Unity. So what did I call this one? I called it just box, so we'll just do another version of it and you can compare them. So I'll just drag this out so you can see it properly, because this second option is to triangulate. Export it, yes, we're going to export, and it then gives us an option to choose a path. Triangulate, I always triangulate me models anyway, because Unity is going to do it regardless. Game engines always triangulate your models, and I just think, well, if you do it first before popping it into Unity, it saves it the trouble of doing it. Anything to speed stuff up, as far as I'm concerned. So we'll choose the path. We're going to go into Banter Projects, Lisa's Workshop, Assets, and then we called this one Box, so we'll just say Box 2. It's version 2. And then it hasn't saved it. All we've done is set the path and the file name. We then need to prepare an export selected, and then don't forget to hit restore transformations afterwards, so that everything's back the way it should be for continuing modelling in Blender. And in here we've now got box 2, which we can then drag in here. We'll just move it over, and you can see we've got a scale of 1 and a rotation of 0, but it is essentially the same thing. This one has a scale of 100 and 100, 100, rotation -90. This just makes everything perfect. So if ever I want to just reset it, nothing else has changed. It's just back at the center of the world again. So that is really useful, and you can see as well when you go into wireframe, it's triangulated. This one is, but this one Unity triangulated when we brought it in. This one we did it ourselves before it was even, before Unity even got its hands on it, shall we say. So that again, I think for this alone, it's worth $5. But for all the other stuff that you get with the basic version, I was going to say the free version there, the basic version of Machine Tools, it's absolutely worth it. I'm just disappointed that it's now not free, because literally just a few weeks ago I downloaded it again, and it was fine. I had no issues, but there you go.
How much is it now?
I think it's $5, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a subscription or a one-off?
It's just a one-off payment. You just buy it and that's it. It's yours. And as long as you've got an account with Gumroad, it's very easy just to go back in. It tells you you've purchased the product as long as you're logged in, and you can just download it again whenever you want. So
On Blender Market.
that's on Gumroad. I believe it's on Blender Market as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on Blender Market.
Yeah. Yeah. $4.99. Save yourself 1 cent. If you get it from Blender Market. I just thought that was funny when I saw it on Gumroad. $333,000 for the version I've currently got. Ah, well, but anyway, those are the two things I wanted to cover there. We'll just, you know what, let's just we'll create a new folder, because I've already got what we did in lesson 1 in there. We'll make that one lesson 2 and just pretend we covered all of that last week. I'll just stick these in. Oh, come on. And I'll just save me scene into lesson 2. And then I can just start a new scene. And we're ready to get going again. So last week, I did say that time allowing, I know it's 6:15 now, we might not get it all done, but we'll try. I did say what we'd do is actually start modelling something useful, rather than just learning theory and, you know, me showing you all these tips and tricks and stuff, actually putting all of that knowledge to use and starting to build something. We'll just start simple, but if we can get something created and looking reasonable, get it uploaded. If we've got time, we'll get it uploaded and go and have a little walk around as well and see what it's like. So what I would like to do is start a new scene in Blender and have a think about what we want to make. I'm just going to get rid of everything. We don't need the camera and the direct light, because it's really only the models I'm interested in at the minute. The thing I thought we could do, which would be quite nice, and I thought about this at the beginning before we even started the lessons, was doing something simple, but something that has got a bit of atmosphere and can make you think, ooh, I made this. And I thought a little cave would be quite nice. As I say, nothing too difficult. There'll be a new thing that we'll be using here. Instead of just bringing in primitive meshes, we're going to use metaballs to start with, and then I'll show you how to convert those into meshes and edit them. So if we have a little think about how a cave is constructed, let's say we have maybe 2 or 3 cavernous areas with some little tunnels or something joining them together. So we'll make something up. We just do add metaball. Metaballs are cool. You can literally duplicate that by pressing Shift and D, and you'll see when you get close, it's almost like
cool.
They've got a weird magnetic property.
It's like cells dividing.
Yeah. So if we assume this one is going to be our first cavern, we'll stick another one up here. And we'll duplicate it again and maybe stick one over here. You can alter the size if you wish. But we're going to duplicate it again, and this one we're going to make really quite small. And we'll start using those as the tunnel and just keep duplicating. You can make the tunnel as windy as you like. And just try and make your tunnels reasonably even. Just because we don't want any super narrow bits that you can't get through even by crouching. But we're going to adjust the scale of it all to fit a normal avatar anyway. Normal person, I nearly said. Is there anybody normal in Banter? I don't know. So there is our basic thing. Now obviously what we want to do is have it flat-ish across the bottom. We don't want these big dips. We want like a floor that we can walk on, and then just have these arching kind of tunnels and stuff. So what we'll do, you can see we've just got loads of metaballs here in the hierarchy. We can select any one of them, and if we right click we can do convert to mesh, and it is now something that you can edit. We're going to edit mode. You can see we've actually got faces and vertices now. Up here you've got 4 different buttons, and the very first one is wireframe mode, and it's basically like an X-ray. You can see right through your mesh and see the vertices on the other side. If you press 1 on your number pad, or 3 but not 7 because that gives you top down view, I'll just hit 1 and zoom in a little bit. Because we're in wireframe mode, we can actually select right the way through the mesh. We can just click and drag and box select, and we've selected everything all the way through. If we hadn't done that and we were in standard view, when you alt and select, it only selects the vertices that are visible. So we need to be in wireframe. Sorry, what is it you'd like me to repeat?
Could you just repeat that last little bit about which button presses you did to get that, to be able to select the whole model?
So these 4 buttons, you've got, if you hover over them, it tells you what each one is. This one is wireframe. This one is solid, which is just basic white with no materials. This one is material preview, which allows you to see the textures and stuff that you've put on, but it's not like the final render. And the last one is rendered mode. I'll go into rendered mode a little bit later on, but for now we need to be in wireframe mode, because that is essentially like an X-ray. So when you box select, you're selecting everything that is visible right the way through the mesh. If you're in solid view or material preview or rendered mode, any of the other 3, it will only select the vertices that are visible on the screen. So 1 on the number pad, we want to box select from the red line, which is basically the baseline, the ground. We want to select all the vertices that are below that. And then if we hit scale, S for scale, Z for the Z axis, and just 0, it'll flatten everything out.
Nice.
And then what we can
recorded?
do, it is, yes, and it will be uploaded to the Banter TV channel. Probably, it's usually 2 to 3 days after I've sent it over to Fee. So what I've done is I've opened up my side panel again by pressing N, and then under item, as long as you're in edit mode, you've got these median values, and if you change the Z1 to 0, that just zeroes all of that back onto the ground plane, exactly where it should be. And if you have a look dead in the centre here where the cursor is, that is where the default spawn point will be. Unless you actually specify a spawn point in a frame, you will always spawn the first time into the world on that spot. So we're going to come out of wireframe mode. I'm still in edit mode, but we're coming out of wireframe view into solid. And this is where you can adjust your cave a little bit if you wish. If you turn on proportional editing up here, we'll not do it just yet, I'll show you what actually happens. If you click on one of the vertices, press G to grab, or you can use the little gimbal up here. If you use the one with the arrows, you can use these to move them around. I like to press G to grab, and then you've got a lot more freedom. And you can kind of push these vertices in a bit, but if you turn on proportional editing, you've got different options. Random's probably an interesting one to try, actually. You've got a circle that you can increase or decrease your sphere of influence, and literally you can just push these vertices around a bit if you want to give it a little bit of you know, less uniformity, if you just want to make it look a bit different. I'm just going to leave it at that for now though. You can also go into sculpting mode, and you can grab and smooth and move things around that way as well. I use smooth mostly. If the shading's starting to look a bit weird, I'll just, you know, smooth it out a bit. That one's a bit weird there.
Question, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between edit mode and object mode?
Object mode, you can't edit the mesh in object mode. You can object the basic transforms, which are up here, such as the location. You can move it around, you can scale it on any of the axes, you can rotate it on any of the axes, but that's all it actually does. And when you, for instance, scale something on the x-axis, it squashes it all from side to side. But you'll see that the scale has changed on here as well. And ideally, when we bring everything into Unity, we want the scale to be uniform. So usually what I'll do after I've done that is I'll either hit Control and A and apply the scale, which will set everything to a scale of 1, or I'll edit it in edit mode. Edit mode allows you to actually edit the mesh itself, so you can move faces around, individual lines, you can delete and create vertices, you can fill gaps. It's literally, that is the real modeling tool. The object mode is just for basic manipulation, moving stuff around, placing it, resizing it, things like that. But as far as actual modeling goes, you really do need to be in edit mode for that. This is where you sculpt the clay, basically, in edit mode. So what was I going to do? Oh yes, the next thing I needed to do was, if you're happy enough with the way it is, normally what I would do is then turn on, that's not what I want. Normally, yeah, that's right. What I would do is turn on face orientation. Face orientation is up here, I think. There it is, yeah. So under viewport overlays, pull down the little arrow and just tick that. What I've got is I've got it added to my quick menu. So I just hit Q for quick favourites and hit face orientation. At the moment I've got face orientation amended, altered, because I don't want to see blue all the time. If it's blue, it's fine. I only need to know if I've got inverted normals if it's red. So I'll put it back the way it was, if I can remember how. I can't remember how actually. It's under viewport, isn't it? No, it's not. Goodness. Would it be under viewport? Interface, themes? I don't know anymore. Textile, bones and colours, video seeking node editor, preferences. 3D viewport, that's the one. 3D viewport, face orientation. I'll just turn the alpha back up. Or maybe to about a half, I think that's what it was. Okay, so once you've got face orientation on, normals are basically, if you can imagine them as little arrows, it's telling you which way a vertex, a line or a face is pointing. Normally you would want the normal facing towards you so that you can see it. If it's facing away from you, you'll only be able to view it from the other side in Unity. It is invisible from the back side. So what we want to do is to be able to see inside our cave. I'm going to export this to start with so that you can see what I mean. I think it's better if I can demonstrate. So I'm just going to call this. I'm going to call this cave. Let's put it in assets first of all. Come on, Lisa. Call it cave. Well, that's not what I wanted either. Cavern is what we'll call it. There we go. And we'll bring that in. So you can see the walls of the cave from the outside. When you go inside, you can see out. You can't see the walls anymore. So the normals are facing the wrong way. We want to be able to see be able to walk through the cave. So we'll go back here. We'll go into, I need to stop doing that. Go into edit mode. Make sure you're in face mode. Normally, I don't use these buttons because I've got add-ons that override the buttons. But if you don't have add-ons that interfere with them, if you hit keys 1, 2 or 3 on your keyboard, that will toggle you to between, you know, vertex, edge or face mode. Or you can use the buttons at the top. So as long as you're in face mode, hit A to select everything. Then you can go into mesh, normals and flip. Or you can hit Alt and N, which will bring up your normals menu, and choose flip from there. Alt N and F will do the same thing. Or Alt N and click on flip, whichever. So now our walls are red on the outside and blue on the inside. So we'll come out of edit mode, back into object mode. We'll export it again. And when we go back in, it's automatically changed. Now we can see inside the cave from the outside, and when we go inside, we've got walls all around us.
From a renderings perspective, you'd rather prefer it that way than having both sides visible, right?
If you don't need to go outside your cave, then there's no point. You might as well save resources and not have it rendering on both sides. Right. Usually what I would generally recommend is that you actually have another mesh with the normal, just duplicate the mesh but have those facing outwards with the same material on, because it tends to be, as long as it's not a really complicated mesh, tends to be easier to render than having a double-sided shader. Double-sided, I might be wrong about this, but I remember reading somewhere that double-sided shaders do use a lot more resources, and that geometry isn't actually that hard for Unity to handle. because it's
Right.
not like it has to do extra calculations or anything like that. It's just got to render it and stick a simple shader on. I may be wrong about that. If somebody finds out something otherwise, please let me know, but that is my understanding as it is. So yeah, there's no point, there really is no point having a double-sided shader if you're not actually meant to ever be out here. So we've done that much. The next thing I would normally do is think about sticking some textures on it. So we'll come out of face orientation mode, because that does your head in a bit after a while looking at blue and red constantly. And I'll go into material preview, just get rid of my side panel for now. And we'll want to have a look for some textures that we like the look of, that we can stick on the floor and the walls. So, as usual, I'm going to go into my favourite ambient CG. Actually, Polyhaven. Shall we have a look at Polyhaven this time? Because remember I was talking about channel packing last time. This place is marvellous, because if you find something that you like the look of, let's just have a look for some interesting rock, for a rock wall. A lot of these are just like stone walls, aren't they? That one's quite interesting. Some of them are just kind of dirty ground. I want one that's got a bit of strata or something, rather than just gravel.
Or brick floor.
Yeah, could do. I
Stone
quite
or
like
something,
that's plastered. I'm not sure I want that. This one's quite interesting. That one, rock wall. Ooh. Tell you what, let's go for this one, shall we? So if you open this up, you've got a few different options. You've got your resolution. I usually go for 2K because we can always downsize afterwards. 4K I wouldn't even bother with, because 4K I would usually go for like a skybox or something like that, but for anything else I just go for 2K, because I think the more textures you have in your world, and as I explained last time as well, 4K, the higher you go resolution wise, exponentially the more resources your GPU needs, because a 2K texture isn't twice the size of a 1K texture, it's 4 times the size, and so on and so forth. So I would usually go with 2K. You can choose whether you want to download a Blender file, GLTF or zip. I always go with zip. Once you choose zip, it'll then give you the option of what you want to download. And if you have a look here, there's one that has got ambient occlusion, roughness and metallic, which is it's already channel packed for you, so you don't even have to do it. That is absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to go with that. We'll use the channel pack texture, we'll use the diffuse, and it has to be OpenGL normals for Unity. So we'll use that. You can see I've already got them ticked because that is my normal choice. We'll download that.
And they're in the PNG format, right?
I've actually got JPEGs ticked.
Oh, JPEG. Okay,
yeah.
I can't see it from here. Okay.
They have got the option of PNG as well. You can tick those, but they're much bigger files. JPEGs are smaller, and unless you actually need an alpha channel, which JPEG doesn't support, then you need to go with PNGs. But most of the time I would just recommend JPEGs because it's easier on the system. So I've downloaded that. We'll drag that into here as usual. Show in Explorer, unzip it, and then we've got our rock wall textures there. And we've just got the 3 we asked for. We've got the channel packed one, the funky looking psychedelic one, we've got the colour, and we've got the normal. We just need to tell it this one isn't to be treated as a colour image. It's got to be treated as a grayscale image because it's just got a grayscale map in each of the red, green and blue channels. The rock wall one we'll leave exactly as it is, and this one we need to tell it it's a normal map. So we apply that. So that's all prepared. I'm now
Create your material.
going to create a shader, and again, because we're using a channel packed one, we need to use Amplify, or unless you know high level shader language, you need to create your own shader to handle a channel packed texture. So in this case, I'm going to open up Amplify. I'm going to give it the usual name of ARM, which is what I always use, and then I know ambient occlusion, roughness metallic, which goes into the red, green and blue channels, and that's exactly what it was on the website. Ambient occlusion, roughness metallic, so you know which channels they're in. And then I'll do my usual, put the name in and a // because when I come to create a material, it's under there. There's my name. That's because I added the / and we're just going to have ARM. I know we already had one, we called it ARM Shader last week, but I think it's a good reminder just to make it again, and then you can see what I'm doing. Hang on, let's just, Lisa, you idiot. Let's just close that. We'll drag the material onto our cave, and then we'll start building the shader. So we've got 3 textures, so we'll just add 3 texture sample nodes.
Amplify?
This is Amplify, yes.
Okay.
So the first one is going to be the albedo, so we'll just rename that. Second one is going to be the normal, but because it's a normal, we need to change the default texture to bump, and we need to tick unpack. Let's just drag that out as well so you can see it. Unpack normal map. And the third one is going to be our packed textures, and we can leave that as it is as well. So we plug albedo into albedo, normal into normal, and then this one we've got ambient occlusion in the red channel, we've got metallic in the blue channel. The green channel we need to invert it because it's a roughness map and Unity uses smoothness, so we add a 1- node and we drag green into there, and then from 1- into smoothness. And there is our basic setup. Now because, well, we'll not do anything with it just yet. Actually, let's just say that again because it's yellow. We now have a blank material which we can plug these into. So we've got the albedo, we've got the normal, and we've got the packed. And you'll see we've got a colour but nothing else. And the reason is because we haven't UV unwrapped the cave. All the vertices are just on a single pixel, so it's shown 1 pixel colour. Somewhere in this image there's that colour. So what we're going to do is go into edit mode, select everything, and we'll just do it the easy way. We'll just do UV, yeah, we'll just do smart UV unwrap. We'll give it a little bit of, yeah, we'll give it a bit of padding, see what that's like. That's probably not enough padding. We'll try it again. Maybe 0.3. Still not great, but it doesn't matter. We'll do it properly when we come to do the light maps. For this, because it's a tileable texture, it doesn't really matter. You know what, let's just put it back to 0. So we're going to export it again and restore transformations. And this time we've got a texture that's kind of working, but it's way too big because we've got one texture, 2K texture, that is having to be used across the whole cave, and it's not tiling at all. So what we're going to do is edit the shader. If you have a look over here, we do actually have tiling boxes. You can adjust the tiling for each of these, but because they are all part of the same material and it's all the same scale, naturally we want to tile it all the same. And rather than having to type in 6 numbers, we're going to do it quicker and just be able to type in 1 number. So what we do is we'll add texture coordinates. Again, if you don't know where any of these are, you can right click and search for texture coordinates, and you'll see it's actually got a little U next to it. So all I did was I held down the U button and clicked, and there's my texture coordinates. And you want 3 of those. And the UV plugs into UV, and then what we can do is we can just add a float, which again, just type in float, and it's got a number 1, so I'm just going to hold 1. There's my float. That's going to be me tiling, so I'm going to call that tiling. You can see here these nodes are asking for 2 values for both the U and the V coordinates. But because we want to scale it uniformly and not stretch it, I'm just going to use 1 value which will set both of these numbers. You can, if you want to be able to affect both U and V, hold 2 and use a vector 2, and then you've got 2 values which you can plug into here. But I'm just using a single value of float. We'll give it a default value of 1, which is normal. Everything starts off with a default value of 1, and we'll just plug that into tiling. And then if we save that, we can then, have I done it? No, I haven't. What I didn't do was set tiling to a property so that it is editable in the material. There we go. Now we've got tiling, and if we scroll that up as much or as little as we want, you can get some quite nice effects. Obviously, if you tile it too much, eventually you're going to have issues with having a real visible pattern repeat. Even though it may be a seamless texture, eventually you'll be able to see a pattern. And the biggest problem with that is things like landscapes and grass and stuff like that. But there are ways around that as well, and I'll show you that in a bit later. But for now, I'm going to set this to maybe 10, no, maybe 15. That looks quite nice, I think, at a scale of 15. Oh, that's quite a nice colour, that as well. And you can even walk through it. The next thing we want to do, how long have we got? Just under 15 minutes, 13 minutes or so left. We've got that set up. Rather than going into lerp nodes just yet, which we'll probably complete next week. Next week we'll continue with this. I'm going to show you how to add a different material on the ground but have it blend into, so you don't get this sharp line that is just one material on this face and what different material here. You can use a lerp node, put it all in one material, your 2 textures, and have them blend nicely together so it looks more realistic. We'll do that next week, but for now what I want to do is set this up for some light mapping. So we'll go back into here, into Blender. I'm going to UV editing. We'll give it its second light map channel. We'll just unwrap that. And as usual, I usually use UV Packmaster 2, but you can do what I said if you wish and just adjust the area in here. But what I like to do is just use this and set it to maybe 0.01 perhaps and pack it. And that UV Packmaster is lovely because it makes the best use of your UV space. So your islands are as large as they can be and your light maps will be as small as they can be, and you'll get much better quality bakes. As I said last time, in Unity, you don't have to create your own light map channels. You can use Unity's own generate light map UVs, but it is absolutely crap. And I can't say this enough. I've said it several times. It is rubbish. Don't waste your time. It's much, much more efficient to make your own. So, and all you need is a second UV channel, because by default, Unity uses the first one for textures and the second one for light maps. So as long as you've got a decent amount of padding between your islands for the light maps, so that you can prevent any bleed of shadows and light from one island to another, then you're good to go. If you do get any issues, you can either increase the scale in the object. You can't see it here, but once we actually bake something, you'll get a light map scale, and you can increase that and rebake. Or you can just go into Blender and increase your padding a little bit, which is probably more efficient. And that's what I usually do. So we've got the 2 UV channels. We'll export it again. And then we are going to, this time, rather than using, I don't know how long it's going to take. This is the thing, we've got 10 minutes left. I was going to say, let's use Unity's own light mapper, because I used Bakery last time. And, you know, we should give the built-in one a try. It's not fantastic, but it's okay. Normally I would leave it at Shadow Mask. I would change it to GPU Preview. It's not as good as CPU. It doesn't handle non-manifold objects, so if you've got a plane, if light's shining over the edge of the plane, you'll get all these weird black blocky artifacts in GPU Preview. So I would always say, there's a reason it says Preview there. Use it only to check that your light mapping's okay, that it's working alright, but when you come to your final bake, use the CPU, and also increase your indirect samples and your environment samples and stuff as well, to get the best out of it. For now, I'm going to leave it at light map resolution of 20, because that's what I've been doing with Bakery. We're leaving it 1024 light map size. And we now want to tell this that we want to bake the light maps. The directional light. Right, directional light we're probably not going to need. So I'm just going to disable it. It's not going to make any difference, because directional lights, while they can shine through walls when it's real time, once it's baked it doesn't, and it'll be totally black. But I'm just going to disable it anyway. You can see that we've still got some light. If we bake this, actually, you know what, let's reduce this to 10, because Unity's light map is so slow, I'm worried that it's going to take up all the time. We'll give it a try and see what we're going to call this. We'll just call this lesson 3. And I hope it's not going to take forever. There we go, that was pretty quick. However, we've still got light in here, and that's not realistic. We're in a cave. It should be, without any external light sources, it should be absolutely pitch black. So what we'll do is we'll go into environment. We've already disabled the directional light, so it now says none. What it's doing is it's getting its colour from the skybox. Environment light in here says skybox. If we change this to colour and make the colour black, hopefully that should fix it. Let's give it a try and see. Sometimes what I do is I just delete the skybox, because it's not necessary when you don't see outside. It's still not really worked. I don't know if that's because of the normal map, but I'm just going to delete that.
Whoa.
And now it's black. That's exactly what we want. Up the top here, you'll see there's a little light bulb. If you tick that, it just takes away, you know, the effect of the light map, and you can see what you're doing. So what I'm going to do is add a light in. we can right click here or hit the plus button, light, and I'm going to use a point light. And if we go into top view, orthographic view, we can then move this light using the little arrows, put it wherever you want it, or you can just grab the little square. We'll put it kind of in the middle. We'll go into side view, we'll lift it up, that'll do. Come out of orthographic view. If we go to inspector, we can change this to, we've already got a nice kind of warm, slightly yellowish light. We'll change that. We'll change this from real time to baked. Yes, we wanted to cast shadows, so I always choose soft shadows, and under render mode, always choose important. There's a limit to how many lights normally would be rendered in a scene in Unity because it assumes everything's a real-time light. Real-time lights have to be calculated in real time on the fly, which uses resources. So they limit how many that you can have visible at one time. And if you've ever been in a world that's got lots of real-time lights, and you notice that you turn your head and some lights are flicking on and off, that's exactly what Unity's doing. It's limiting how many lights can be on. So we have to set it as important. I set all my lights as important, so when it bakes it, it doesn't miss any out. They're all baked onto the light map. So we'll tick this little...
Do you need to do static?
Well, you'll see when under Cavern I've ticked global illumination. It does have a little line next to it, so it is marked as static, but the only thing we've marked is that we need to bake the light maps, the GI. You don't need to just tick static because that will enable everything, and you don't always need everything. If you don't have a reflection probe in your scene, you shouldn't have that ticked. If you haven't got characters, if you're not building a game and you need characters to jump from mesh to mesh, you don't need off-mesh link generation. Just things like that. Batch and static, well, that's more to do with how it renders stuff, whether or not you're going to be instancing or batching. I'm going to go into that in detail in a later lesson. Occluder, you've got occluder and occludee. If you're going to be using occlusion culling, you will need to choose which of these, either or both, or neither. You have to think about that for every object when you come to occlusion culling. So really, I would suggest don't just tick the box and enable everything because you're using up unnecessary resources. Just tick what you need, and in this case, all I need is global illumination because I'm just baking the light maps. You can always tick other things as and when you need them. So I've turned the little light bulb button on again. Got 3 minutes left. I'm going to rebake the lighting. And if I've done it right, if I disable the point light, it makes absolutely no difference because the lighting is now baked into the light map. So we can literally have a little walk along here and we're going into the darkness. Ooh.
Yep.
And then you see the light at the end of the tunnel. And you can put as many lights as you like, throughout your cave system. Just have a play with them, find something that feels kind of moody and atmospheric and whatnot. And I think that's probably where we're going to leave the hands-on stuff for now, because we've got a couple of minutes left and I would like to answer any questions if anybody has any. We'll do our best to get it finished and uploaded next week, I think. So, anybody got anything? Any questions they'd like to ask?
Jane wants to say something.
Yeah. Just shout up. Don't wait for me to ask you. Now, Shane.
I think Shane has a question.
Are you muted? Or are you just running around with your hand up? For the fun of
I'm
it?
just being a blackguard.
Okay.
I'm just being a blackguard, ignore me.
Okay. So
That
if
was great,
nobody
thank you.
has any questions, we'll leave it for there. I would like to thank everybody for coming along. It has been absolutely brilliant. I hope that you're going to speak to me. If there's anything that you know that I have wrong, please speak up. I am the first one to admit I'm no expert, but what I do know, I will happily share with you, and I'm always one for learning new stuff as well. So anything, any corrections you want to make, or anything you want to tell me, please do. I'd love to hear from you. But for there, I'm just going to leave it at that. We shall stop the recording. And as I say, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming along. And I hope to see you all next week. And hopefully the recording will be up on YouTube in a few days' time. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very much.